Yes, our next question will come from Dr. Theodore Halatsis. If you could please unmute and turn on your camera.
Hello, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, sir, President.
Yes.
Please go ahead, sir.
I am here today as President of the Canadian Hellenic Congress, representing our members, and I would like to thank Minister Champagne and his office and all the MPs for taking the time to meet with us today to discuss matters of concern to Canadians of Hellenic origin. We hope that today's discussion will help to strengthen the ties between our government and our community, enhancing our mutual cooperation. Within the mandate of the Canadian Hellenic Congress to represent, advance, advocate, and promote the interests and concerns of Canadians of Hellenic descent and Hellenism in general, the CHC has communicated with Prime Minister Trudeau and our government over the past several months on issues of current concern to Hellenes across Canada. Specifically, we have communicated with the Prime Minister and his office with regard to Turkey's illegal and provocative actions in the Eastern Mediterranean region in violation of sovereign territories of Greece and Cyprus. Turkey's aggressive actions in the region over the past few months have raised tensions to dangerously high levels, and this is of great concern to all of us. We have also communicated with the Prime Minister and with you, Minister, on the issue of Hagia Sophia and Turkey's defiant decision in contravention of international law to convert the great church into a mosque. We believe that Turkish President Erdogan's decision reflects a rhetoric of conquest that heightens the alienation of Constantinople's Christian past and brands Turkey's non-Muslims as reconquered subjects and second-class citizens. You will recall, Minister, that our most recent communication with you on the issue of Hagia Sophia was actually a joint letter with the Armenian National Committee of Canada and the Serbian National Shield Society of Canada, representing Greek, Armenian, and Serbian communities of Canada, respectively. In view of Hagia Sophia's UNESCO's World Heritage Site status, this is clearly a matter of international concern and not just a domestic issue. And given that Canada is a founding member of UNESCO, in our letter, we urged you, as well as our Prime Minister and our Canadian government, to 1, condemn Turkey's illegal actions and defiance of international law. 2, to make a public declaration in support of UNESCO's statement on this matter. 3, and to make every diplomatic and political effort to reverse Turkey's decision and to safeguard all universal heritage sites around the world. Another matter of serious concern to our community is the sale by Canada of military drone optics to Turkey, despite an arms embargo that is in place. Turkey's long history of aggression and human rights violations, as well as violations to its neighbors' sovereignty and a total disregard for international humanitarian law, are well known and reinforce our belief that as Canadians, we must not in any way, shape, or form assist the Turkish government by providing military weapons or technology to be used in an offensive manner. As such, the CHC wrote to Prime Minister Trudeau in June of this year, urging him and our government to recognize Turkey's state of policy of aggression and expansionism in the Middle East and the Mediterranean Sea, to respect the embargo and to cancel the sale of Canadian drone optics to Turkey. Another issue that the CHC has been advocating for the past several years is the recognition of the Pontian Greek genocide by the government of Canada. And we hope that this soon will become a reality. It is way overdue. In closing, Canada has a long-standing record as a staunch supporter of the rule of law and of humanitarian rights and religious freedoms, and must uphold the international law by publicly condemning Turkish government's illegal actions. We see it as a choice between joining those nations who have already condemned and work to end significant and sustained human rights and international law violations and illegal actions, or stay deafeningly silent in the face of these violations and actions. Because we believe our choices define us as people and as nations, it is our hope that Canada will choose to be a nation that works alongside those other nations to uphold human rights and international law. Thank you very much for hearing.
Mr. President, I am delighted. First of all, I think it's the first time we meet. I wish it could be in
Yes,
person,
it
but I
is.
just want to let you know that my door is always open to you. I have great respect for your views, and certainly I took notes of your comments, which I knew, and I can assure you, when it comes to issue of human rights, I can assure you, it might be a perception in Canada, but I don't think there's many countries in the world, when I talk to my foreign colleagues, that would think that there's a country who speaks more often on human rights than Canada. I think we've been at the forefront with the EU, certainly more often than perhaps any other country I can think of, to make sure that we uphold the rule of law, whether it was in Hong Kong, whether it was with Xinjiang. In the Eastern Mediterranean, I've been engaged with NATO on numerous occasions. I think if you were to ask NATO, they would probably say Canada has been one of the most engaged in the discussion so far. So there's been a lot of diplomacy, I would say, in the back room, which might not be obvious to everyone who's watching us. But I think that's what allowed us, when we were talking with the SecGen, to come to at least bringing the parties closer together on de-escalation in the Eastern Mediterranean. And I'd be happy to brief you, have my officials brief you more deeply on what we've been doing with that. And certainly I take your comments about the Arms Trade Treaty. As you know, we probably have one of the most robust systems in the world. I don't pretend that it is perfect, but I certainly make sure every time there is any allegation that they're investigated thoroughly. On this one, I can assure you we're talking about a handful of equipment, and all the military intelligence that we have been talking to have confirmed that these weapons have been used in the fight against ISIS and not for any other use. Now, I appreciate there might be different views, but I'm just telling you very upfront what is the evidence that we have been receiving from NATO and other countries which are engaged. But I'm more than happy to engage with you on that. I appreciate your comments with respect to that. And I can, these export permits, Mr. President, I wish I can tell you that it's probably the side of my job which is the most difficult, to be honest, because it's always through great due diligence. And as a lawyer, I do tend to ask a lot of questions before any of these permits are ever issued. And they will be revoked at any given time if I see evidence that they would be used against the law. And certainly we are always, I've created an export panel, an expert panel, for example, on exports. And we're probably the only country in the world to have that. So I'm always willing to look at ways where we can improve, we can do better. I don't pretend we're perfect. And certainly your views and the views of the community are of great importance to me and my colleagues. So please never hesitate to come back to me. And I can assure you that your words, your concern are listened to. And then we have the difficult job of making decisions. But I can assure you that your voice and your concerns are heard thoroughly in how we frame some of the responses to the issues that we have to be deciding.
Mr. Champagne, I want to thank you very much for your attention and your time. And basically to reiterate what the Honorable Lenny Bacopano had said, it is because we know what Canada stands for, and we know what you've done in the past for other circumstances around the globe, it just surprises us that we haven't heard it verbalized with regards to this current issue. Thank you.
I see. No, and I appreciate that, Mr. President. And I think what we should do, and I look at the person in the mirror when I say that, we should do better to keep you informed of every step. And sometimes I have discussions that I don't render public because they might not necessarily be of public concern. But we will certainly do a better job. And when I say that, I look at myself to try to inform you more thoroughly about the steps we're taking on these issues so that you are, I don't necessarily want to pretend you will agree, but at least I want to make sure that we give you as much information about what we're doing.
Thank you once again to you and to everybody with you and all your colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.